She saved a Lakota baby in a blizzard, then 20 warriors tested her heart. The wind screamed like a dying thing across the Dakota plains, driving snow so thick Clara Whitmore couldn't see her own fence posts. She pressed her face against the frosted window of her cabin, watching the storm swallow the world whole. 3 days now since the blizzard struck. 3 days since she'd seen another living soul. Then she heard it, a sound that shouldn't exist in this frozen hell. A baby's cry, thin as wire and twice as sharp. Clara grabbed her wool coat and pushed through the door. The cold bit her lungs like broken glass. Snow whipped her face raw as she stumbled toward the sound, following that desperate wail through drifts that reached her waist. Her boots sank deep with every step, but she pushed on, driven by something stronger than sense. There, beneath a skeletal cottonwood, she found a bundle wrapped in beaded doeskin. A Lakota infant, no more than 6 months old, blue-lipped and shivering. The baby's mother was nowhere to be seen, only tracks leading into the storm, already half buried by fresh snow. Clara's hands shook as she lifted the child. The town of Crow's Bend lay 12 miles south, where Sheriff Dalton preached that the only good Indian was a dead one. Where Pastor McKinnon blessed rifles from his pulpit every Sunday. Where her own husband's grave bore a headstone that read, "Killed by savages," in letters deep enough to last forever. But this baby's fingers curled around hers with desperate trust. Those dark eyes held no hatred, no knowledge of the blood spilled between their peoples. Only need. Only hope. "God help me," Clara whispered, and carried the child inside. She warmed milk by the fire, fed the baby drop by precious drop. The infant's cry softened to a whimper, then to silence as sweet sleep took hold. Clara held the child close, feeling the tiny heartbeat against her chest like a bird's wings. Outside, the wind howled warnings she pretended not to understand. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world buried in pristine white. Clara wrapped the baby in her own quilts and tried to think. She should take the child to town, let the authorities decide. That was the proper thing. The safe thing. But she remembered Sheriff Dalton's laugh when the Hendersons lost their crop to raiders last fall. "Shoulda shot 'em all years back," he'd said, spitting tobacco juice into the dust. "Now they breed like rabbits, and we pay the price." This baby hadn't raided anyone's crop. Hadn't killed anyone's husband. The child was innocent as morning snow, and twice as fragile. Clara made her choice. She would keep the baby until spring, until she could find its people. Surely that was mercy, not treason. Surely God would understand. But as she looked out at the endless white, she wondered if mercy and treason weren't sometimes the same thing. The days blurred together in a rhythm of feeding and rocking, of keeping the fire bright and the cabin warm. Clara named the baby Hope, not aloud, just in her heart, because hope was all either of them had now. She sang lullabies her own mother had sung, watched those dark eyes track her movements with growing trust. Sometimes, in the deep quiet of winter nights, Clara forgot about the world beyond her walls. Forgot about the hatred festering in Crow's Bend like an infected wound. In those stolen moments, there was only this, a woman and a child, bound together by need and tenderness. 3 weeks into February, Clara heard horses outside. Not the thunder of a war party, but the measured pace of men with purpose. She pressed her face to the window and counted them, 20 riders, sitting their ponies like statues carved from winter itself. Lakota warriors, painted for ceremony, not war. The baby stirred in her arms, making soft sounds of recognition. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. She could grab her rifle, barricade the door, fight until her ammunition ran dry. She could hide the child, claim ignorance, pray they would pass by. Instead, she stepped onto the porch with the baby in her arms. The warriors sat silent as tombstones, their breath steaming in the cold air. Their leader, a man with silver threading his braids and scars mapping his weathered face, urged his horse forward. His eyes found the child, and something like pain crossed his features. You are the woman who saved our blood, he said in careful English. Clara's throat went dry as dust. I found her in the storm. Him, the warrior corrected gently. Our grandson. Our chief's son. The words hit Clara like a physical blow. Not just any child, the son of their leader. She had been sheltering a prince without knowing it. The warrior dismounted, his movements deliberate and proud. I am Grey Wolf, father to the mother who could not save her child from the storm. You have kept our blood alive when the cold would have taken him. Clara held the baby tighter, feeling her world shifting like ice on a spring river. What happens now? Grey Wolf's eyes held depths she couldn't fathom, grief, gratitude, and something else. Something that looked like judgment waiting to be passed. Now, he said, we test your heart. Grey Wolf's words hung in the frozen air like smoke from a dying fire. Clara clutched the baby closer, feeling 20 pairs of eyes studying her every breath, every tremor in her hands. The child gurgled softly, reaching tiny fingers toward the painted warriors as if greeting old friends. Test my heart. Clara's voice cracked like thin ice. I don't understand. Grey Wolf stepped closer, his moccasins crunching in the snow. You are white. Your people have spilled our blood like water from a broken vessel. Yet you saved our prince when you could have let the storm take him. He paused, studying her face with eyes that had seen too much war. We must know if your mercy comes from the heart, or from the head that calculates advantage. The other warriors remained mounted, silent as carved stone. But Clara could feel their judgment pressing down like the weight of winter sky. One wrong word, one false move, and this fragile moment would shatter. I saved him because he was a baby, Clara said simply. Because he was cold and hungry and alone. Words, Grey Wolf replied. Easy as breath on wind. We need proof. He gestured to one of the younger warriors, who dismounted and approached with something in his hands, a leather pouch that rattled with each step. The warrior, barely more than a boy with fierce eyes and fresh scars on his cheek, stopped 3 feet from Clara and appended the pouch. Gold coins spilled into the snow like fallen stars. More money than Clara had seen in 5 years of scratching life from this harsh land. First test, Grey Wolf said. We offer you gold for the child. Enough to buy passage east, to live soft in the cities where war does not reach. Take the gold, give us our prince, and ride away from this place of blood. Clara stared at the coins glinting in the morning sun. With that much gold, she could leave this cursed frontier behind. No more lonely winters, no more fear of riders in the night. She could have a life without looking over her shoulder, without counting bullets and rationing hope. The baby made a soft sound, and Clara looked down into those trusting dark eyes. No, she whispered, then louder, no. He's not for sale. Grey Wolf nodded slowly. The young warrior scooped up the coins without expression. Second test, Grey Wolf announced. Another warrior dismounted, this one older, with silver in his hair and a face like weathered granite. He carried a rifle, its barrel gleaming with care. Clara recognized it as a newer model, better than her own patched and repatched carbine. Your husband died by our weapons, the older warrior said in English touched with accent. I am standing bare. It was my bullet that took his life when he rode with the soldiers against our village. Clara's blood turned to winter water. She remembered that day, Thomas riding out with Captain Morrison's patrol, promising to be back by supper. She remembered waiting, watching the horizon until her eyes burned. She remembered the riderless horses coming home. I offer you justice, Standing Bear continued. Vengeance for vengeance. Kill me, and the debt is paid. Or let me kill you, and your husband's spirit can rest. Clara's hands shook as she stared at the man who had made her a widow. She could almost feel Thomas's ghost standing beside her, urging her to take the offered justice. How many nights had she dreamed of this moment? How many times had she imagined facing her husband's killer? But the baby in her arms stirred, and she felt that tiny heartbeat against her chest. This child needed her. Not vengeance, not justice, just care. "I won't kill you," Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And I won't let you kill me. This baby needs someone to protect him. That matters more than evening-old scores." Standing Bear studied her for a long moment, then nodded with something that might have been respect. "Third test," Grey Wolf said, and Clara's heart sank. How many more trials could she endure? This time, Grey Wolf himself stepped forward. From his belt, he drew a knife, not a weapon, but a tool worn smooth by years of use. The blade caught the light like captured fire. "The final test is this," he said. "Cut the child's palm. One small cut, so his blood mixes with the earth of this place. Do this, and he becomes bound to you as surely as if you birthed him. You will be his mother in all ways that matter, and we will honor that bond." Clara stared at the knife, then at the sleeping baby. "You want me to hurt him?" "I want you to claim him," Grey Wolf replied. "A mother's love must be willing to cause small pain to prevent great suffering. If you cannot draw one drop of blood to save him, how will you spill your own when the test truly comes?" The baby opened his eyes as if sensing the weight of the moment. Those dark pools held no fear, only trust. Clara took the knife with trembling hands. The blade felt heavy as sin, sharp as truth. She thought of the town waiting 12 miles south. She thought of Sheriff Dalton's rope and Pastor McKinnon's hatred. She thought of the choice that would come, and come soon. With the gentlest touch, she pressed the knife's point to the baby's palm. One tiny drop of blood welled up, bright as a ruby against pale skin. The child didn't even cry. Clara let the blood drop onto the snow, where it melted through the white to touch the earth beneath. "It is done," Grey Wolf said, and for the first time, Clara heard warmth in his voice. "You are his mother now. We are his people. That makes us family, white woman. That makes us bound by something stronger than treaties or war." He mounted his horse with fluid grace. "But know this, if you betray this trust, if you let harm come to our prince through weakness or fear, we will return. And we will not come with tests." The 20 warriors wheeled their horses and rode away, leaving Clara alone with her choice and her child and the echo of hoofbeats fading into memory. In the distance, church bells began to toll from Crow's Bend, calling the faithful to Sunday service. The sound carried across the snow like a warning. The church bells of Crow's Bend tolled like funeral drums across the winter landscape, their bronze voices carrying news that made Clara's blood run cold. Sunday service had ended, but the bells kept ringing, the signal Pastor McKinnon used when the town needed to gather for urgent business. Clara pressed her face to the window, the baby sleeping peacefully in her arms. In the distance, she could see riders approaching through the snow. Not 20 this time, but a dozen men from town, their horses black against the white earth. Sheriff Dalton rode at their head, his star catching the pale sunlight like a warning. She had maybe 10 minutes before they reached her cabin. 10 minutes to decide whether to run or stand her ground. The baby stirred, making soft sounds that tugged at her heart. His tiny hand had healed from yesterday's cut, leaving only the faintest mark, a reminder of the promise she'd made. She was his mother now, bound by blood and choice. That meant protecting him, no matter the cost. Clara laid the child in his makeshift cradle and reached for her husband's rifle. The weapon felt familiar in her hands, though she'd never fired it at another human being. Thomas had taught her to shoot rabbits and deer, not men. But desperate times made killers of saints and cowards of heroes alike. The riders drew closer, their voices carrying on the wind. She caught fragments: Indian lover, traitor, rope. Words that turned her stomach to ice water. A knock thundered against her door, hard enough to rattle the hinges. Clara Whitmore. Sheriff Dalton's voice boomed through the wood. "Open up in the name of the law." Clara checked the rifle's load one last time, then opened the door with the weapon held loose in her hands, not pointing at anyone, but ready. Dalton sat his horse like a man used to being obeyed. His face was red from cold and anger, his eyes small and mean as a snake's. Behind him, she recognized half the men in town, farmers and merchants and drifters, all united in their hatred of anything that threatened their narrow world. "Sheriff," Clara said, keeping her voice steady. "What brings you out on such a cold day? Don't play innocent with me, woman." Dalton spat tobacco juice into the snow, leaving a brown stain that looked like dried blood. "Word's gotten around about your houseguest. About the redskin baby you've been harboring." Clara's heart hammered, but she kept her face calm. "I don't know what you mean." "Lies." The shout came from behind the sheriff, Jake Morrison, whose brother had died in the same raid that took Thomas. "Betty Chin saw them warriors riding away from your place yesterday. 20 of them, painted for war." "They weren't painted for war," Clara said before she could stop herself. Dalton's eyes lit up like a cat spotting a mouse. "So you admit it? You've been treating with the enemy. Harboring their spawn while good Christian folks bury their dead." The baby chose that moment to cry, a thin, desperate wail that cut through the winter air like a blade. Every man in the group heard it. Clara saw their faces harden, saw hands drift toward weapons. "Bring out the child," Dalton ordered. "Now." "No." The word came out stronger than Clara felt. Dalton drew his pistol with practiced ease. "I'm not asking, Clara. I'm telling. That baby is evidence of your crimes against this territory. You'll hand him over, or we'll take him." "What crimes?" Clara demanded. "Saving a child from freezing to death. Feeding a hungry baby. Since when is mercy against the law? Since you started showing mercy to savages." Jake Morrison pushed his horse forward, his face twisted with old grief. "My brother's dead because of their kind. Your own husband's dead. How can you protect the very people who murdered him?" The accusation hit like a physical blow, but Clara stood her ground. "This baby didn't kill anyone. He's 6 months old, Jake. He can't even crawl yet. He'll grow up to be just like the rest," said Ezra Walsh, the town's undertaker. "Better to stop the problem while it's small." Clara's blood turned to winter ice. "You're talking about murdering a child." "We're talking about justice," Dalton corrected. "About protecting our families from future raids. That baby's father is probably the same buck who killed your husband. You think he'll thank you for raising his son? You think he won't come for revenge when the boy's old enough to hear the story?" "His father is a chief," Clara said quietly. "His grandfather led the warriors who came here yesterday. They could have killed me, taken the baby by force. Instead, they tested my heart. They accepted me as the child's mother." The words fell into silence like stones into deep water. Several of the men exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their faces. But Dalton's expression only grew harder. "Tested your heart." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They marked you, Clara. Made you their ally. That makes you a traitor to your own kind." Pastor McKinnon rode forward from the back of the group, his black coat making him look like a carrion bird. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said in the voice he used for delivering sermons, "I've prayed over this matter. The Lord has shown me the truth, that child is a test of your Christian faith. Will you choose your own people, or will you cleave unto the heathen?" "I choose to protect an innocent child," Clara replied. "Then you choose damnation." McKinnon's eyes glittered with righteous fervor. "For it is written, Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." And what is this but witchcraft? This unnatural bond between white woman and red child? Dalton raised his pistol until it pointed directly at Clara's heart. "Last chance. Hand over the baby, and we'll call this a moment of female weakness. Refuse, and hang as a traitor to your race." Behind the sheriff, men began sliding rifles from saddle sheaths. The metallic sounds of weapons being cocked filled the air like deadly music. Clara looked at their faces, men she'd known for years, men who'd shared pews with her at Sunday service, men who'd helped bury her husband. Now they stared at her with the cold eyes of strangers, ready to spill her blood for the crime of showing mercy. The baby's cries grew louder, as if sensing the danger that surrounded them both. Clara's finger found the trigger of her rifle as Sheriff Dalton's pistol held steady on her heart. The baby's cries pierced the frozen air, and somewhere in the distance, she heard what sounded like thunder rolling across the plains. But the sky was clear as winter glass. "You have 10 seconds, Dalton said, his breath steaming like dragon smoke. 10 seconds to hand over that Indian brat, or we'll take him over your dead body." The thunder grew louder, and Clara realized it wasn't weather at all. Hoofbeats. Many hoofbeats, coming fast from the north. Jake Morrison heard it too. His head snapped around, eyes wide with sudden fear. "Sheriff, we got riders coming in hard." The sound crested the ridge like a breaking wave, and 20 Lakota warriors appeared against the horizon. They rode in perfect formation, lances gleaming in the pale sun, but Clara noticed they carried no rifles. This wasn't a war party, it was something else entirely. Grey Wolf led them, his painted pony moving like liquid shadow over the snow. The warriors spread into a crescent formation, surrounding Clara's cabin and the townsmen in a deadly embrace of horseflesh and steel points. Dalton swung his pistol toward the approaching riders, but kept one eye on Clara. "I should have known. You signaled them somehow. Called your red friends to rescue you." "I didn't call anyone," Clara said, and it was the truth. But her heart lifted as Grey Wolf dismounted and walked toward the standoff with the calm dignity of a man who'd faced death too many times to fear it now. "White Sheriff," Grey Wolf said, his English careful and clear. "You threaten our son's mother. This brings dishonor to your words of peace." Dalton's face went purple with rage. "Your son. That baby belongs in a Christian home, not with savages." "The woman has proven her heart," Grey Wolf replied. "She chose the child over gold, mercy over vengeance, love over law. That makes her worthy. What have you done to prove your worth?" Pastor McKinnon urged his horse forward, his Bible clutched in one gloved hand. "Heathen devil. That woman has been corrupted by your witchcraft. She must be cleansed by righteous fire." Grey Wolf's eyes never left Dalton's face. "You speak of cleansing, priest. But your hands are not clean. I remember the village you burned 3 winters past. I remember the children who died screaming your God's name." The pastor's face went white as fresh snow. Clara felt the moment balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong word, one sudden move, and the snow would run red with blood from both sides. The baby in her arms seemed to sense the danger, his cries quieted to soft whimpers, as if he knew that silence might save them all. "This ends now," she said, stepping between the two groups. "All of you, listen to me." Every eye turned to her, 20 painted warriors, 12 angry townsmen, and one frightened woman holding a child that didn't belong to either world. "This baby didn't choose his blood any more than I chose mine," Clara continued. "He's innocent of every crime you want to lay on him. He's never held a weapon, never burned a cabin, never spilled a drop of anyone's blood except his own when I pricked his palm yesterday." "Yesterday?" Dalton's voice cracked like thin ice. "What happened yesterday?" Clara met his stare without flinching. "Grey Wolf and his warriors came here. They tested my heart with gold, with vengeance, with sacrifice. I passed their tests, and they accepted me as this child's mother. That makes me family to their people, and them family to mine." Jake Morrison spat into the snow. "Family? They killed your husband, Clara. How can you call his murderers family?" "Because this baby didn't kill Thomas," Clara replied. "And because I'm tired of bleeding for crimes I didn't commit." Tired of hating people I've never wronged. Tired of choosing between love and law when law offers nothing but more graves. Standing Bear, the warrior who'd confessed to killing Thomas, urged his horse forward. Clara saw Dalton's gun swing toward him, saw trigger fingers tense on both sides. "Wait," she called out, and somehow her voice carried enough authority to freeze them all. "Standing Bear killed my husband in battle. He offered me vengeance yesterday, his life for Thomas's. I refused it." "You what?" Jake Morrison's voice cracked with disbelief. "I refused it," Clara repeated. "Because killing him won't bring Thomas back. Won't heal the hurt or stop the cycle. This baby needs a mother more than my husband needs revenge." Sheriff Dalton's pistol wavered, uncertainty creeping into his hard eyes. "Clara, you're talking treason. These people are our enemies." "Are they?" Clara looked around the circle of faces, white and red, young and old, all marked by the same scars of loss and fear. "Or are they just people trying to protect what they love, same as us?" Grey Wolf stepped closer, his weathered hands empty of weapons. "Sheriff who speaks of law, I make you an offer. A treaty between our peoples, sealed with the blood of this child who belongs to both worlds. Let the woman keep our son. Let her raise him to walk between our peoples as a bridge of peace. In return, we will honor the boundaries of your land, trade fairly for what we need." "And if we refuse?" Dalton asked. Grey Wolf's eyes grew hard as winter stone. "Then we take our son and leave this place. But we will remember who chose war over peace. Who chose hatred over hope." The silence stretched like a bowstring pulled too tight. Clara held her breath, feeling the weight of two worlds pressing down on her shoulders. Then the baby laughed, a sound like silver bells in the frozen air. One tiny hand reached toward the painted warriors, the other toward the townsmen, as if trying to embrace them all. In that moment, Clara saw the choice that would define them all. Not between right and wrong, but between the world they'd inherited and the world they might build. The snow began to fall again, covering the blood-stained ground with the promise of clean beginnings. But some stains, Clara knew, would never wash away completely. Some choices marked the soul forever, leaving scars that told stories of mercy chosen over vengeance, love chosen over law. In the silence that followed, she wondered if they would choose wisely, or if the child in her arms would grow up to see the same cycle of hatred played out again, painted fresh in tomorrow's snow.